Okay, so the next question you'll be asked about is the width. You'll be asked to identify the width of an item. Now, you'll get this information from the listing description screenshot or the item name. Now, there are some notes about identifying the width of an item from the item's name. If the item is a bracelet, a chain, or a choker, and has in its name mm, standing for millimeter. For example, if it says David Yurman 5mm diamond cable bracelet, David Yurman 10mm Metro cable choker, David Yurman 1.7mm box chain, then it's giving you the width of the cable or the chain. In this case, width refers to the thickness of the cable or the chain. So, and normally if you heard width, let's pull up an example of a David Yurman bracelet so I can point to what I'm talking about as I tell you. Okay, so if I heard somebody typically refer to the width of the bracelet, I would think that they were talking about the measurement from here to here, or the width of any type of item, right? But on Yurman pieces, if it's a bracelet, a choker, or a chain, what they're actually talking about is the width from here to here. They're just talking about the thickness of this cable right here. So, and the reason why is because David Yurman bracelets go up in price the thicker this cable is right here. And the same thing is true with his chokers and his chains. So if you have one of those three items, a bracelet, a choker, or a chain, and you're answering a question, or you're trying to determine what the width is, and there's a width listed in the name, like in these examples, then you can be pretty much 100% confident that it's referring to the width that you want to input right here into this field. This is asking you, in this field, it's asking you for the width of this right here. So let's look at our examples we have over here and see if we can identify any of that information since we've got two bracelets. Okay, so it said you can look either in the item's name or the listing description. So we don't see anything in this item's name about that has millimeter measurements, so that doesn't help. And we don't see anything down here that has millimeter measurements, so that doesn't help. So in this scenario, if you were entering width on this item, you would just have to leave the width measurement blank. Let's look at another example. Okay, so you don't see anything in this item's name about millimeter measurements. However, you do see down here 4mm Cable Classics pearl and diamond cuff. So you would answer in the width field that the item was 4mm because that's what it says there. You'll notice that there's a second part to my note in the spreadsheet here where it talks about item names that have millimeter measurements in them that are not measuring width. Instead, this millimeter notation is actually measuring the gemstone size. So the question now is, how do you tell the difference between what is a width measurement and what is actually a gemstone measurement when you have millimeter notations in the item's name or in the description listing? So if the item is a pendant, ring, or earrings, and there's a millimeter notation inside the item's name, then that measurement is referring to gemstone size rather than width. Here are some examples of when an item name would have a millimeter measurement that refers to gemstone size, such as a David Yurman 11mm Albion Prasolite and diamond pendant, or David Yurman 7mm Infinity Onyx earrings. This is an important distinction to know because in a following question, you're going to be asked to identify whether or not the listing, description, or the item name provides the gemstone size. So just to recap, if an item is a bracelet, chain, or choker, and it has a millimeter measurement in the name or in the listing description, it is almost always going to refer to the width of the item. However, if the item is a pendant, ring, or earring, then the millimeter measurement provided is actually going to be referring to the gemstone size. So let's go look at this in GoCanvas. There's a couple of things that I wanted to show you. The first is that you don't really have to worry too much about accidentally inputting the gemstone width or the gemstone size in as the cable width, because when you change the jewelry type up here to a bracelet, you have the width question, right? And you'll also have the width question if your jewelry type is a choker or if it's a chain. However, if you are inputting a ring, that question disappears because it's not something that we measure. Or the same thing is true for earrings or for a pendant. So you don't have to worry too much about accidentally inputting the millimeter measurement into the wrong field. The other thing I wanted to point out was that just like we discussed under collection, the item width, let's go back to an item that shows that. The other thing I wanted to mention was that just as we had two fields for collection, and then editable collection, we also have two fields for width and editable width. We have down here under the width questions, the width, and then the editable width. So once you select the width here from the drop-down menu in the first question, then it's going to autofill the width down here under editable width. Now, earlier in one of the examples, I quickly showed, without commenting on it, a bracelet where we had 4 millimeters entered as the width. That's not one of the options in here from the drop-down menu. So in that case, you can select input cable width value, and that's going to leave an opening for you to type in 4 millimeters or whatever the width may be. Likewise, if you have absolutely zero width information, as we saw in one of our previous examples, you can select leave blank, and that will leave this field blank for you. And so now we've covered everything both in width and editable width. All of the details that we've discussed about where to find that information is going to be in these columns, and our additional notes that we went over about both width and editable width are going to be in these columns. So you can always refer back to it in written form, but we've gone over all the information in these two questions, and so we can continue on to questions 16 and 17. So 16 and 17 are going to cover gemstone type and editable gemstone type. So let's discuss how to find the gemstone type. So similarly to identifying collections, we are going to look for the gemstone type in the listing description and the item name. And then if we can't determine it by what's written in the listing description or the item name, then we're going to look at the item images and refer to our gemstone type reference guide on this spreadsheet in order to identify what the gemstone is based on its color. So let's talk about the notes on identifying the gemstone type. So the gemstone type refers to the type of gemstone that the item features as its largest gemstone. The gemstone type can be determined by looking at the same screenshots that you used to determine the item's collection in the earlier questions. And that's going to be your listing description screenshot, and also looking at the item's name if the gemstone type is not listed under listing description. Finally, if you can't find any gemstone type listed under the listing description or in the item name, you'll actually take a look at the gemstone yourself and then use the reference guide for the gemstone type that we have on the spreadsheet and identify the gemstone based on its color. Now, we've done a separate training already on how to identify the gemstone type based on its color using the reference guide on the inventory purchases spreadsheet, but we've not looked at how to identify the gemstone type inside the listing description and the item name. So let's take a look at a couple of quick examples for that. So let's take a look at the examples that we've been using throughout this entire video. This is the Macari screenshots. So we're going to go down to the listing description screenshot right here, which has both the listing description details and the item's name, and see if we can determine what the gemstone type is. So you can see up here there's no gemstone type listed in the item name. But when we go down here, immediately it says authentic amethyst and diamond DY bracelet. So we know right there that the gemstone type is amethyst. Now, if you were wondering if it's amethyst or diamond is the main gemstone, all you need to do is look at the item image and say, okay, what is the predominant gemstone there and what are the smaller gemstones? It's very evident that the amethyst is the predominant gemstone. So that's fairly straightforward. Let's look at the next example. This is our Poshmark example. Let's go down to the description listing. So you can see here, there's nothing in the item's name, but down here it says 4mm Cable Classics Pearl and Diamond Bracelet. So once again, all you have to do is look at the item to figure out if the main gemstone is the pearl or the diamonds, and it is definitely the pearl is the bigger gemstone here. So in this case, pearl would be your main gemstone type. Let's take one final look at an example from eBay. Let's go down to the eBay listing description. You can see here, it also says that this is an amethyst and diamond ring. And again, once we look at the ring, it's very evident that amethyst is the much larger gemstone, and therefore the gemstone we're going to record. So that's extremely straightforward. Okay, Foreman, so now that we've gone over a couple of examples on how to pull the gemstone type from listing descriptions and the item name, let's go over one real quick example on how to identify the gemstone type if it's nowhere on the listing description or item name. I know that we did a separate training over this, but we'll just do one quick example. So I pulled this item right here. So you can see, let's pretend for a second that we can't find what type of gemstone this is in this item's name or in the listing description. So what do? Well, first we're going to go to our gemstone type reference table, right? And at the very top, we're going to look through the colors here and decide which color that is. That's very clearly a blue colored gemstone. So we're going to click on the link to blue. Now it's going to take us down here. There are 3 gemstones in total that we sell that are blue. The one with the asterisk is the one that's most common, which is the blue topaz. However, we can take a look at these blue topaz images over here, and we can see very clearly that that does not look at all like this gemstone does, right? So we can pretty much nix this blue topaz. And if we go down to the next one, the Hampton blue topaz, and look at those pictures, it's pretty much the same situation. So if we keep going, we get to turquoise. If we look at the pictures here, compare it to this picture over here, it's very obvious that this is most likely going to be a turquoise piece. And so when we get to the gemstone type, we would input turquoise for this item. So let's go ahead and go into GoCanvas, and we will right now put in that gemstone type. So we'll go down here to gemstone type, hit the drop-down menu. Let's see if we can find turquoise. There we go. So we'll select turquoise gemstones. And just like our previous fields, we'll have both gemstone type and editable gemstone type. So in the event, again, that you don't have the gemstone you need on this list, you can put in gemstone type not listed, and that's going to prompt you to delete this and put in whatever gemstone you've got into this field. Or if the item has no gemstone, which is a frequent occurrence, we have several types of rings and bracelets and earrings that are made out of silver and gold and have no gemstones at all. In that scenario, you're just going to select no gemstone, and it's going to pre-populate a pre-filled phrase here that's going to be used in our listing descriptions when all of this information gets plugged to generate those, and you can just leave this alone and not edit this. And so that basically concludes both gemstone type and editable gemstone type. So the next 2 questions we're going to go through are accents and editable accents. Now, before we go through where you could find them, I actually want to go through what accents are. So accents refer to either accent metal, such as 14 karat gold or 18 karat gold detailing on a sterling silver item. So not the metal that's making up the majority of the item, but rather any other metal detailing that's also on the piece in addition to the main metal that the item is constructed out of. So it's just going to be an accent, a detail portion of the piece. So you'll have metal accents that will always typically be either 14 or 18 karat gold, and then the other type of accents that you'll have would be diamond accents. So here's an item from David Yurman, and as you can see here, it is made predominantly of sterling silver except for these gold tips. And therefore, this item would only have gold accents. Let's look at the next one. So this item, you'll notice, has sterling silver, It has an onyx gemstone tip, and then it also has this gold detailing right here. And therefore this one, accents would be gold accents as well. Take a look at this ring. You can see it's made of sterling silver. It has a prasiolite gemstone, and then it has these diamonds right here, these small diamonds, this detailing. And so on this one, you would put in diamond accents. Because it has no gold detailing, there's no gold accents. On this David Yurman bracelet, you can see it's constructed predominantly of sterling silver. It has some diamond detailing at the cuffs, and then it has gold tips. So this bracelet would have both gold and diamond accents. And then finally, I wanted to show you this one. Even though this has gold on it, it doesn't have any gold accents because it's made up entirely of gold. They're not an accent detail. However, it does have diamonds. So on this one, the accent type would just be diamonds. Now I want to talk to you about how you determine whether or not it's 18, 14, or 18 or 14 karat gold. And by the way, I just showed you how to identify the accent types from looking at the items visually by looking at the item image screenshot. But the other way that you will determine it is by looking at the listing description or by looking at the item's name. For example, if you look at this item right here, you can see in the listing description that down here that they tell you right here that it's made of sterling silver and 18 karat gold. And you can look at it to determine if the gold they're talking about is an accent on the item or is one of the main metals it's constructed out of. And when it comes to our items, gold, it's always going to be an accent metal. We very rarely, in fact, I don't think we've ever been able to purchase a 100% gold or a predominantly gold item from David Yurman. You'll also see that they've also listed that information up here in the title. So if it's not in the listing description, just like everything else that we've looked at in this video, also look in the title. Let's look at another example. On this piece, you can see when you look at the listing description down here that it says specifically it's a 20 millimeter citrine gemstone surrounded by diamonds. So that information plus looking at the item tells you that the diamonds are an accent. And again, the diamond accents are also mentioned in the item's name. Now, when we look at the listing description on this piece, it reads, this is a David Yurman cuff with 18 karat gold. The word with kind of clues you into the fact that the 18 karat gold is going to be an accent, or you can just look at the item to determine that as well. One of the reasons why you want to look at the listing description and the item name to determine the accents is that even though you can visually identify whether or not it has gold on it, you can't determine the carats usually without looking at the listing description or the item's name. There is one method for determining what karat gold was used on the piece without having that information in the listing description or the item's name. And I am going to talk to you about it now, but this is something I don't expect you to pursue or use to determine listing information for several months. But I want you to know that this is another method available. So if you go back and look at their spreadsheet, you can see that I've got listed information about the item's hallmarks. All jewelry made out of precious metal will typically be stamped with a hallmark indicating what type of metal was used to construct the item. And those stamps are numerical codes that you can translate to determine what karat gold was used or what purity of silver was used. So 925 stands for sterling silver, 585 stands for 14 karat gold, and 750 stands for 18 karat gold. 99% of the pieces that you come across from David Yurman are going to be either 18 karat gold or 14 karat gold. So that's the only type of gold that we're going to worry about in this video. So what you can do if you need to know what karat gold the item has on it is you can go through the item's photos until you find the picture of the hallmark, which I would say about 80% of people selling David Yurman items always include a picture of the hallmark. And then once you look at that, you can see what numbers are on it and determine from there what what karat gold is being used on it. We'll look at one or two examples really quickly. So let's look at two examples of that. This is a David Yurman bracelet that has some gold detailing right around the cuff. And you can see right here, it says DY on one side, and then it says DY 925585. So because 585 is 14 karat gold, we know that that piece has 14 karat gold accents. Let's look at another one. This also got the DY stamp with the 925, which is sterling silver, and 585. So on this one as well, we can determine that that has 14 karat gold. Occasionally, you will see ones instead of 585 or 750, they'll be stamped 14K or 18 karat. And those obviously stand for 14 karat and 18 karat gold. So let's look at how this is entered into GoCanvas. So we'll go down to the Accents drop-down menu. And here is your list of accent combinations. You can see here that I've included a lot of different combinations of accents and some accents that we're hardly ever going to see. What you're going to enter 99% of the time is going to be 14 karat gold, 18 karat gold diamonds, or diamonds plus either type of gold together. Once you select the accents here in the drop-down, then they're going to plug in a phrase right here. The reason that it's a phrase and not just a repeat of the information is because all of this info in the editable fields actually get plugged in to auto-generate our listing descriptions. And so that basically covers everything that you need to know about accents and editable accents. Oh, one last thing. If you still can't determine what carat the gold detailing is, just use 14 karat gold, as that's the most common. That's the last note on our accents.